feels like something's still holding it. Oh.
What's up, guys? I'm Joel. This is Motors and Mischief. Behind me, it's a 2014 Ford Focus. It's having a little bit of a problem with its engine. Right there is Will. Focus belongs to Will. And today, well, first, I guess, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened? Why is this car here?
Oh, man. So, took it in. Didn't want to deal with an oil change myself. Took it into an oil shop that must not be named. They didn't screw the oil filter back on all the way. Now, I didn't discover that until a little bit later after dumping a whole bunch of oil down the highway.
Pretty much when you were getting on the freeway at full power.
Oh, yeah.
And then the engine stopped. It is seized so bad we can't get it to turn around with the pry bar. So, time for a new motor. New motor, sitting right there. Now, we thought we'd take you guys along, Motors and Mischief fans. This is right up your alley. For those of you on the how-to, we're gonna go through and do a full how-to video on replacing this motor. This engine is a little unique. Obviously this car's front wheel drive. This one happens to be a stick, and the motors on these things come out from the bottom. Actually, the plan for us, I believe, is to take the crash bar off, and we're just gonna take it right out the front. But I'm not 100% sure on that, so we're gonna try getting what we need out of the way, and then take a look at it and see how it's going. We'll update you guys as we go, so that you know exactly what's going on. So, first thing to do is we gotta get this old engine out of here. So let's get started on that. All right, guys, real quick, before we get on to the video, I wanna tell you two things. One, we've got a list of specs and a list of additional parts that you're probably gonna need when you're doing this job at the end of the video. So be sure to watch all the way to the end. Also, we got bloopers. Put them at the end of every single one of the videos. So after you get done looking at the specs, watch the bloopers. All right, now on to the video. All right, guys, update time. So we got the front clip off. I just want to show you on these Fords, there are two bolts. Oops, there are two bolts that go through right here. You can get to them from the back here. It's easiest just to come up from under here. You pull this out of the way, and then you undo those two bolts. Then there's a little clip right here. You just lift this up, and this thing slides out. This is the thing I was talking about that the screws go through, so that'll be sitting there like that. And then there's a little clip right here that you just unhook so that this front fascia will come off. There was 2 Torx bits in each corner near the fenders. And then there was, how many more in the front?
There's been 4.
4 more across the bottom. There's also that air dam that you saw us take out. So you gotta get that out of the way first, and then you can undo this front clip. It really comes off pretty easy. So now we've got this. So our thought is to take this entire assembly off, and then that should expose everything, give us a lot more room to work on the motor. And then I believe we'll be down to the point where the only thing left will be the radiator, condenser, and the crash bar. So, I think getting this stuff out of the way is definitely going to be helpful to be able to reach the stuff on the motor. So it doesn't look like there's a lot of bolts holding it in. I believe that it's just this one and this one. Once you get the rest of this stuff disconnected, I think that's all it is that's holding this in place. Oh, and these will have to come off for the fender. So we'll give that a shot and see what it's like. We'll let you guys know what we'll find here. Look what we found, guys. Car's been sitting for a month while we've been gathering the motor and the time to do this swap. So we don't see the mouse. We're not sure where he went. We're thinking he might have gone up inside the motor, which is fine. You can have it. But at least we didn't find dead mice or babies in there, which we've both done before. guys, just about to get this radiator core support out, and just wanted to show you. This thing is bolted in right here. There's a bolt that goes in here to this. There's a bolt right here that you'll see. We took both of those out, one on this side, one on this side. Then what you've got is you have to drop this windshield washer bottle, because it's connected right here, right there, to the bottom of this. So you need to get that out of the way. And then it's a little tricky because you've got this thing right here that sits up inside this. Now it's just a press fit. There's nothing holding it. But basically what you have to do is you've got to slide this forward to get it to come out from underneath this frame rail. But at the same time, you've got to lift up to get this to slide off of right here. So if you bring the whole thing out at kind of like a 45-degree angle, it'll come out, and then this just pops out. We did take the airbox off so that you can get to that, but it's not hard. It's just you got to finagle it a little bit. So that's what we did to get that off of there. All right, guys, so there we go. That taking that front crash bar off was definitely the way to go. It was really easy to get it off. It is 8 bolts and like 5 or 6 electrical connectors. So you just unbolt right here, unbolt right here. All right, so once those bolts are undone, the radiator and the evaporator can just sit inside there, and we just took them off and put it away. Obviously, since you have to break the AC system open to disconnect the engine because you've got the compressor in there and stuff, make sure if you've got Freon in the system or if you got 134 in the system, get that evacuated beforehand. In our case, it had already, the car didn't have any Freon in it because the AC didn't work. So that's a problem that we'll be tackling after we deal with this new engine in it. So now that that's off, the next steps are to go ahead and start pulling all the accessories on this motor. We're also going to have to pull the, we're going to take everything out with the transmission and the engine assembly all as one. So we're going to have to pull out the axles, and then we'll disconnect from the motor mounts. The whole thing will come right out. So we'll start pulling that stuff apart. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and pull the axles while the motor and transmission are bolted firmly in place. So those axles, all we got to do is disconnect this bolt right here. We'll use an air gun on that. And then down here, there's a pinch bolt right here. So once this comes out, you put a pry bar underneath this, wrap a piece of chain or something around there to hold it, and then just pop that down. Once that's out of the way, underneath there, let's see, can't quite see it, but it's back up in there. There's a carrier bearing for the passenger side axle. So that needs to be unbolted so that the axle will come out. The carrier bearing, there's a CV joint, I believe, on either side of it. That will come apart right there. So be careful when you're taking it apart. You don't want to separate that. You want to pull it out of the transmission. There's nothing holding it in the transmission, no clips or anything. It's just a, socketed in with the splines. So that'll slide right out. We'll do the same thing on the other side. That one will slide right out. We'll set the axles out of the way where they won't get damaged, and when we go back together, they just slide back in. So we'll be taking those apart now. Okay, guys, in order to get these axles out, you have to drop the lower control arm, like I was telling you. Take that pinch bolt out, and then once the pinch bolt's out, you've got to, you can see it was in right there. You need to drop this lower control arm down. So a trick for doing that is to, if you got a piece of chain, it works better. We didn't have a chain, so we just wired it up. But basically just put a cheater bar on the bottom of that like that. update time. We are fighting with just this and that. So we're taking the electrical out. We got the exhaust manifold disconnected. We did take out the axles, and I want to show you guys. Actually, the driver's side axle is stuck in the transmission, but I think because we're pulling the transmission, or we're pulling everything out, that the axle could just go with the engine assembly, and we'll deal with it after we get it out. But for those of you guys who I'm assuming are not going to have yours stuck, they should pop right out the way the passenger side did. So what we did, just to show you guys, like we showed you, we pulled that pinch bolt, and then this thing just pulls right out of the way. I see a lot of videos where people take the hubs apart, they take the brakes apart, they take this out, they take that, they take all this stuff. You don't got to take any of that. It'll come right out. So we didn't even have to force it. You just pop this back in. I use a piece of wood so that we don't hurt anything. Carefully drive that back in. There's enough play that once that gets back in there, you just pull this out of the way like that, and then the axle pops right out. So this is a manual transmission. We're working on the clutch connection right now. I'm not sure how that goes together, so we're going to figure that out, and we'll get that done. And then I think it's just the 2 motor mounts and we're ready to come out. So I believe we're super close. I'll update you guys again if that turns out to not be the case. All right, let's go. Okay guys, update time. So we got the wiring harness completely out. It's not hard. There's not really any part of it that's super difficult. It's just, it seems like Ford picked a different type of clip connector for every single one of these clips. So the hardest thing, and the thing that takes the most amount of time, is just guessing how the clip comes apart. But once you get those out of the way, the wiring harness goes off to one side like this. And then there is a ground right here, and this connects right there like that. So I pulled this, got that ground out of the way, and then this line right here is the power line going down to the alternator, looks like. So since that's all coming with the engine, we're just going to disconnect it right there, and Will's still trying to figure out how to get the clutch thing off. So we'll show you that as soon as we figure it out. All right, back to it. All right, guys, we figured out that clutch. It was actually really, really simple. So that's the clutch line right there. It goes into the housing right there. This little clip sits right on top of it. So you just pop that clip out of there, and then this disconnects. So now that that's done, I think we're actually to the point where we're going to go ahead and put the hoist onto the motor and pull these mounts. We should be sliding this thing out real shortly. Okay guys, next step, pull the battery box so that you can get to the mount on this side. Let me show you what that looks like. This is actually holding the transmission in place. Once that gets let loose, the engine drops down, as you can see. And we're gonna go ahead and pull this to get it out of the way, because it's just these 4 bolts, and I wanna get this out of the way so we can get to those clutch linkages down there, because or shifter linkages, because those are the next things that have got to be disconnected. And then that's pretty much it. This thing's done. It'll be out of here. So wish us luck. All right, guys, motor's finally out. So it is no longer in the car. I definitely think that this was the right way to do it, to pull the front brace off, the crash bar off, and just pull it out. It was actually really easy right up until we got to the axles and the exhaust system. The axles, this driver's axle refused to come out, and so we ended up just leaving it in there. I don't really like doing that because now it was putting tension on that CV joint, but it wasn't a ton. I think it'll be okay. We'll try to pry it out of there now that it's out and we can get more access to it. So that was a pain. Hopefully yours will come out. The other thing is a couple of things. Let me show you. This exhaust pipe, from what I can tell, there's no possible way to get this header off of the back of this engine. So you really got to disconnect it right here. I don't know why Ford didn't have a flange right here. That would have made life real simple. I also don't know why they put this mount like this. It works like a freaking anchor. And this tries to grab every single piece of everything coming out of there as you're coming out. So you got to do the bolts right here. Those are way back underneath the engine. They're real hard to get to because not only did Ford decide that they needed to be all the way back there, they faced them forwards. So we actually ended up having to come in with a really long extension from the front of the car to get to them. Real quick, I want to show you guys, there's a couple of, I believe they are vacuum connectors on this car, and they are next to impossible to get apart if you don't know what you're doing. Let's see, this is what so that's the little bracket that holds in there. This is what the connector looks like. So there's actually, here's one with, it still has its connector in it. So what you're gonna see is there's white ones and green ones. So there's a white one right here, and this part actually goes in, right here. So you have a piece on the top, a piece on the bottom. I was able to pull this part out. There's the green ones right there. Will, you want to demonstrate what you have to do to get that out of there? Because it's not what you think.
Yeah, so instead of squeezing it like instinct would kind of dictate, you actually have to, and it's a pain in the rear to do, you have to come in from above and pull it open because these will stick out on either side. And like once you do it, it's like, oh yeah, why wouldn't you do it that way? But until you've done it, you would never think to do it.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So there's two of those, three of them, one green one and two white ones, and they are quite the pistol to get out of there. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward, and the axles were really easy. Normally, the passenger one slid right out like it's supposed to. I'm not quite sure why we're having so much trouble with the driver's side, but that is it. So now that this silly thing is finally out of here, the next things that we've got to do is we have to pull the exhaust manifold, we got to pull the transmission, we got to pull the accessories, and then here's our new motor and everything that we got to put onto it. So I think what we'll do now is go ahead and start getting the pieces off of this one, get that transmission separated from the block, maybe get that axle out of there so that we don't damage it. And then we'll start pulling the stuff apart to be able to get it onto the new motor. So that is going to be the next step. Last thing, this took us, let's see, it's 5:30 now. We started at 9 o'clock. It took all day to get this out of here. I really don't think that it would take that long. If we'd have had this video, I don't think it would have taken that long. A lot of stuff we had to stop and figure out if that really came out that way or what it would try to look like from the other side. So I feel like you guys could probably get that out of there a lot quicker. My advice is to watch the video all the way through. As we find other tips and tricks, we'll let you guys know, and then it'll be all back together. But really, that's definitely the fastest way to take everything apart, and just be prepared to deal with that silly exhaust system. And like I said, hopefully your axle will slide right out. So, okay, we're gonna go ahead and start disassembling stuff on this. So I'll put you guys on time lapse. All right, let's go. All right, guys, that quick update, that axle popped right out. As soon as Will was able to get a actual pry bar on it, it slid right out, and it's totally fine. So that's all good. Hopefully you guys won't have any trouble. We just couldn't get enough leverage on it while it was under there to get it to slide out. So, which is not the norm. Normally my understanding is they slide right out. So hopefully you guys won't have any trouble, but it did slide right out once we got it out of there. So that'll make it easier to go back together. Will's pulling the exhaust manifold right now. You got the heat shield off of it. So exhaust manifold coming off, and we're gonna see if it's possible to have pulled this exhaust manifold and left it behind. I don't think so because of this bracket right down there. And even if it could, I don't know if that would have been easier. I don't think either way is easy. So I don't know that we wouldn't have still done it the way we did. But we're gonna get that off there. We'll let you know if that'll something you guys can try. Okay guys, we got the exhaust manifold off. Pretty simple actually. We were curious if this could have stayed behind. So come here and take a look at this. This plate along the bottom holds the bottom of this. These are not welded together, it is just bolted. So you can reach these pretty easy from underneath the car. And then you can get to these. There's not a lot of room, but there is room. The only problem is that then to get this off, you're gonna have to like pull the engine away from this as the rest of it comes off. I don't know if that would be any easier. If you guys are thinking when you're doing it, you want to give it a try, go for it. And then please be sure to post a comment down below about whether you think it was pretty easy or not. I think it's going to be just as hard as pulling this out. So I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So I don't know that we did it any more difficult by doing it the way we did it. So this is off. We're going to pull this out of the way, start taking the transmission off, and then we'll do the engine accessories. All right, let's go. Hey guys, wanted to mention another thing for you while taking stuff apart. There are 3 motor mounts that are holding this thing in. So there's one right here. That one's super obvious. You guys can see that when you're working. There is another one around here on the back of the transmission. You can see that. It fits in right down here when you're working it. There is a third one that is right there. And that one is, yeah, that one goes right there. And if you forget about that one, then this thing will fight you the entire time. And that's where it goes, is right there. So all you gotta do is pull out this bolt right here. It's just one 15mm bolt that goes in right there. All the rest of this can stay aside. And then that thing just comes right out as a piece of cake. But if you forget it or you don't know it's there, obviously it's not coming out, and because that part's so flexible, the engine will move around on you like it's ready to come out, but it's not really ready. So 3 motor mounts when you go to pull this thing out of here. All right, guys, we are going to call it for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll put this thing back together. Just ran out of daylight, and my wife's cooking dinner, so we're going to go eat. Yeah, we'll see you in the morning. All right. Hey, guys, it's been a couple days. We got some parts, and we are ready to get this thing put back together. So first thing we're going to do, get it pushed back out so we can work on it, get the Jeep out of here, and get our parts moved over. And then we'll start putting the transmission onto the new engine. Everything will start going back together. All right, let's get to it. Okay guys, we got the flywheel transferred to the new engine, and this particular clutch, ideally we'd replace the clutch, right? If you're doing all this work and to take it all the way out, spend $180, put a new clutch in it. However, as I believe I've mentioned, this car is getting an ST upgrade this coming summer. So the motor blew up just a little premature from what we were planning on anyway. And so there's no point in spending a bunch of money on a stock clutch right now when we're going to put an upgraded clutch in it for the ST. So really, this is just the process to get this thing to when we convert it for the ST. So if you guys are doing it, highly recommend putting the clutch on it. You do need new flywheel bolts. They're torque to yield, so according to the manufacturer, you're supposed to replace them. And then it's three stages. You go 42 foot-pounds, then 50 foot-pounds, and then 83 foot-pounds. So obviously do them in a star pattern so that the thing seats properly, and then that'll get that on there nice and good. So like I said, we're reusing our old clutch. It's not great, but it's got enough material on it that it'll be fine. And we're gonna go ahead and use our clutch centering tool and get that slid into place. And then we'll torque the bolts around the outside of that. And then it'll be time to put the gearbox on. So, all right, here we go. Okay guys, we are ready. We got everything transferred from the old engine to the new engine. It's looking good. Got the new oil filter on there. Everything is ready to go. And that wasn't easy. It fought us like crazy. So let me talk real fast about the AC compressor here. So if you are going to change this, Ford makes a special tool. And basically what they want you to do is just pop the belt right off of this. You basically hook the tool in right here, and then you turn the engine and it walks the belt off. And that is the Ford method of getting that off of there. That's a terrible way to get this thing off. There's no adjustments on this, which I don't like at all, but Ford seems to think it's great. So when you're putting this in, there's a tremendous amount of tension on the front of the alternator. You can do it without the tool. You just have to put the put this in first, hook it onto the belt, and then you need to get something to to pull the back end in line, because there's so much tension on this to make it tight that you can't get enough just with the bolts. So we actually ended up using this clamp right here, and we put that on the side here and pulled it against the side of the block, and that actually worked really well. Then we were able to put in the one bolt that holds it without this sheath, and then put the rest of them on. So that's how you can do it. It worked fine, and we got the new belt on there without any problem, but it's probably easier with the tool. So if you are short on funds and you don't have the tool, it can be done, no problem. If you've got a couple extra bucks, pick up that tool, and then you can do belt changes on your Focus yourself whenever you need them. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and stab this back in, and this thing has fought us this entire way, so hopefully now it's going to go perfectly smooth. We're not going to have any problems. Okay guys, she's in. She actually went in pretty simply. So we got this side bolted up. It kind of had to go in at an angle, as you saw on the, kind of like that, as you saw on the time lapse. And then basically what we did is we pulled it up with this one and then set it down with these right there. So that's all in. There's one more on the bottom that's lined up. We got to shove the bolt through it, and then that is it. It was fairly easy to stab that exhaust system in through the exhaust hole. So I still think that that's the right way to do it, is to leave that exhaust system on there. So we've got all this done. Now it's just a matter of bolting everything back together. So you guys are going back on time lapse. We're picking good music. Enjoy that, and get this thing back together. Okay guys, we've got pretty much everything hooked back up and everything in. It's all connected and looking fantastic. We need to bleed the clutch. So I put the clutch back in. We showed you when we were taking it apart. That just plugs in and then that little clip slides down from the top. That was super easy. And then this nipple comes off right here. And then you just use a wrench on this and turn that to open it while you're bleeding it. So obviously it takes two people to do that. So Will's gonna jump in the car. We're gonna check the linkage on the shifter, make sure we got that hooked in properly. And then we'll go ahead and bleed the clutch and then this crash bar is ready to go on. So that's next, let's go. All right guys, we're putting on this front clip back into place and I just want to show you this thing has got a lot to do with how all the body panels line up. The hood latch goes right here, so it has to do with where the hood sits. It has to do down here, you've got these adjusters and stuff to get the front, this guy, in the way he's supposed to be. So a trick is, obviously if your car hasn't been apart a whole bunch of times before, this is the original paint marks for where the bolts were. So you line those back up so that they end up in exactly the right spot, and adjust those back where they were, and then everything should be back in. You're gonna massage it to get your front bumper in exactly the right spot, but if you start there, it should be real close. To get the axles back into place, you may have to give them a little love tap to get them back on. Be sure to put your axle nut over the end of the thread so you don't screw those up. And then just give it a gentle tap. You saw how Will was doing it using we got a plastic hammer with metal ends on the end of it, but just not too hard, but give it a little persuasion, slide right back in. When you're pulling this axle, you might want to disconnect this guy right here and move this brake line out of the way. If you undo that, this thing will really swing off to the side. It'll move enough to get that out with this still here, but you can give yourself quite a lot of room and not be stressing the brake line if you just undo that. When you're putting the axles back in, make sure that the axle is seated all the way into the transmission and all the way into the hub. If you have any problem with the lower control arm pin going back in so you can put the pinch bolt back in, your axle's not in far enough and it's pushing out on one end or the other, probably the hub end. It's pushing out on the bottom or the hub assembly and it's keeping it from lining up. It will slide right in when you've got it in far enough. So if you're having trouble getting it to go in, just get a piece of wood and gently whack on the hub, and that will slide the axle or slide the hub around the axle where it's supposed to be. It'll pop right in. If you're fighting it, it's not in deep enough. All right, guys, moment of truth. We got oil in the engine. We got coolant in the engine. We got the battery hooked back up. Axles are all hooked back up. Motor's obviously in. Everything is ready to go. We're going to go ahead and start this thing. See what happens. Wish us luck.
Oh, I'm nervous.
Listen to that. Man, she purrs. She fired right up. That's awesome. All right, well, 1 point for Ford. All right, guys, now that we know it runs, time to put everything back together. We got to do, get the tires on it, get the belly pan on it, get the front bumper, and the hood, a couple of the miscellaneous stuff. So we're gonna bang those out and it'll be ready to pull out of here. right, guys, we are done. She purrs like a kitten. It's actually running really good. Cycled through all the gears, goes forward, everything goes in. So we got the clutch plate properly and everything's good. You saw in the time lapse, we torqued the axle nuts. Those are to the torque spec and then 90 degrees. So, and you're supposed to replace those axle bolts. So right after I'm done talking here, at the end of this video, we're going to have a list of torque specs for you and a list of parts that we recommend that you grab while you're doing this. Try to make your job a little bit easier. I think that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. We're definitely not Ford mechanics, but I think we did a pretty good job swapping this motor out. It's not hard. You can definitely do it. We did it in 2 days. So, and that was with having to figure a bunch of stuff out. Hopefully with this video, guys, we'll be able to go a lot quicker. I think if we did it again, we could probably get it done in a solid, probably like a 10-hour day in and out without any problems. So, all right, guys, hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and we love you. Peace.
Started. Yeah, be right there.
Woman, I'm busy.
Anyhow,
You want to say that we're just
started.
Oh, and I broke it.
Yeah, this one's already broken, so. All right, peace. That was on my side, that won't work. 77th time is the charm. I think I'm gonna cut most of this out because I'm not really saying anything.
Just like that. Holy crap, that's heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we figured it out.
Oh yeah, totally. When you guys do it, I don't know what I was gonna say.